New evidence tonight of what sure looks a lot like bribery in plain sight. Reporters of the Washington Post unearthed Trump Organization records that show foreign interests with an open agenda of what they want the U.S. government to do for them, funneling money to the president. The Post obtained the VIP arrivals list at Trump's D.C. hotel and learned a wealthy Iraqi sheikh who openly advocates for U.S. military strikes against Iran spent 26 nights in one of the hotel suites just last year, more than anyone else on the list. Suites at the hotel started about $1,000 a night, meaning the sheikh likely spent at least $26,000 at Trump's hotel last year. And he's just one name on a list of more than 1,200 individual VIP guests. Joining me now, David Fahrenthold, one of the Washington Post reporters who broke the story. He covers the Trump family and its business interests and won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage of Donald Trump's questionable history of charitable givings. David, what are these documents you got your hands on?
They're called VIP arrivals lists. So every day, the Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C. tells its staff, here are the important people coming in, people you should keep your eye out for, either because they're important or they're spending a lot of money or they're staying a long time. So it's a list of faces and names and often a little explanation of why they're important. So we're going through this list of VIP arrivals for a particular day in November of last year, one of the ones we got leaked. And we see this one guy, Naro Al-Khaznazan, staying for 26 days, which was, of all the 1,200 stays we documented, his was the longest, which made us interested in finding out, well, who is this guy and what does he want?
Who is he and what does he want?
He is the leader of a Sufi order of Muslims based in Iraq. He is, in the world of Iraqi politics, a minor player who wants to be a really big player. He would like to be president of Iraq, and he also would like the U.S. to launch military strikes against Iran, who he sees as sort of his main rival. And that's the same thing he's been coming to Washington to lobby for, is talking to the National Security Council, to the Department of State, calling for U.S. military strikes on Iran.
You know, he's, of course, not alone. I mean, one thing that struck, I want to get to some of the others again. One thing that struck me is the VIP list itself is important because if what you're trying to do is influence the Trump administration, right? Like, they have to know that you're there and spending a lot of money on them. Yeah. It doesn't work if you're doing it anonymously. But the fact he's on the VIP list means that someone fairly high up in the organization do know who the big spenders at the hotel are.
Oh, of course, yeah. Every day there's between 10 to 30 of these people who are VIPs, and you know, some of them are just people visiting from out of town, people who, you know, have no affiliation with the government, don't want anything from Trump's government, but some of them do. A few months ago, we documented T-Mobile, right? T-Mobile executives announced this merger that needs Trump administration approval. The next day, 9 of them checked into Trump's hotel. So you see patterns like that of people who really need something from Trump's government making this public show of spending money with Trump's business.
We've also got Saudi-funded lobbyists who paid for 500 rooms. The Trump Hotel story, I believe you broke. ProPublica has broken stories about folks in the payday lending industry down at Mar-a-Lago spending $1 million. There's no central repository for us in the public to actually have a sense of who is paying for what in what Trump properties, who might have whatever interest, correct?
No, there's nothing like that.
What would it take to get that? I mean, this is all just being done piecemeal, right?
Right, through leaks, through, you know, looking at public records. The only thing that's sort of like that, people are, you know, the effort that's being made are these emoluments clause lawsuits filed by Democrats in Congress and by the D.C. and Maryland attorneys general. And those are sort of narrowly focused. They're focused on the D.C. hotel and saying, Trump Organization, tell us just who your foreign government clients are. Forget about T-Mobile. Forget about people who want something that aren't foreign governments. Just tell us who your foreign government clients are and how much they've spent. They're asking for that, but they're a long way from getting it.
All right, David Fahrenthold, more excellent reporting. Thank you so much for making time tonight.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.